Hello, welcome to Learn English Lab. Today's podcast Advanced English Listening Practice topic name is Detecting Subtext, What Speakers Really Mean. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really getting into something fascinating, the whole world of decoding subtext. We're focusing on that crucial, often kind of missed layer of how we communicate. This isn't just about knowing words or grammar, right? It's about really getting what someone intends. Yeah, think about it like this huge detailed tapestry, the actual words we use. That's just the stuff on the surface, the pattern you can easily see. But underneath all that, there's this, richer, more complex layer. It's often invisible, And that layer, the subtext, that's what really shapes things. Our relationships, big decisions, all of it. It shows the truth we're maybe too nervous or maybe too polite to say out loud.
Exactly. That invisible layer, the subtext, that's really where the core meaning often lies. It's not what's said directly. It's what's implied or inferred or maybe even what's strategically left out. Subtext covers, everything from unspoken hints and hidden feelings to, and this is key, the underlying intentions that give words their actual weight. It's like, when a colleague says, I'll try to get that done by Friday, but you hear that real stress in their voice.
Oh yeah, the slight tremble or the sigh before they say it.
Precisely. It signals they're probably already drowning in work. They're agreeing, likely just because they feel pressured to. The subtext is totally different from the words.
And shifting your focus like that from just the words to the intended meaning, that's a game changer. That's our mission today, isn't it? To help you, listening in, become a master decoder of these hidden messages, especially in American English. It's not just about catching someone in a lie. It's way bigger than that.
Yeah.
It's about getting real insight.
Absolutely. Whether you're in a tense boardroom meeting, maybe in Silicon Valley trying to figure out the power dynamics, or just trying to understand why a family member went quiet over Thanksgiving.
Or even listening to a politician speak.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mastering subtext can turn what seems like a simple misunderstanding into a really powerful, useful insight.
Okay, let's ground this. That classic example you mentioned earlier, Sarah and Mike in Chicago. Sarah's a teacher, right?
Yeah.
Comes home totally wiped out after parent-teacher conferences.
Right. Emotionally drained. And her husband, Mike, asks that simple everyday question, how was your day?
And Sarah gives that classic infuriating reply. It was fine. Just fine.
But if Mike's really paying attention, if he's tuned into the subtext, he sees all the other clues.
Yeah, like her tone. Sharp, maybe a bit clipped.
Exactly. Brittle, almost. And she avoids eye contact, maybe looks down, or just focuses intensely on something else.
And the action. Busying herself in the kitchen, but aggressively. Clattering dishes, slamming cabinets, maybe.
That aggressive movement, that busyness, it's a perfect nonverbal signal of her frustration. The words say fine, but the tone, the avoidance, the agitated actions, the subtext screams, it was awful. I'm completely frustrated, maybe even angry, and I need space. Don't push me right now because I might snap. Definitely not fine.
That little scene sums it up perfectly. So the big question is why? Why is subtext such a huge part of American communication? Why not just say what we mean?
Well, the main reason, looking at cultural patterns here, is that subtext acts as a really important social lubricant. American culture, generally speaking, really values politeness.
Yeah.
And maybe even more than that, individualism.
Right. Being direct can feel rude.
It often is seen that way, yeah. Direct confrontation, especially in more casual or professional settings, can feel aggressive or like you're stepping on someone's toes, invading their personal space. So people use indirect language subtext to kind of soften disagreements or to avoid making direct requests that might feel awkward or just to keep things smooth on the surface.
Maintain harmony, even if there's disagreement underneath.
Precisely. It lets us function together without the constant friction that, totally blunt honesty might create. It's like a social peacekeeping mechanism, even when the underlying tension is significant.
The diplomatic route. Okay, so if you want the real story, you got to look past the words. Let's really break down how we infer that meaning, the mechanics of it.
Okay, so the foundations. Subtext is, by definition, it's the meaning the listener infers. It's not stated outright by the speaker, ever. To figure it out reliably, you, the listener, need to analyze the whole communication picture. And that picture, as we've sort of touched on, has 4 key parts working together.
We need to be like situation detectives.
Yeah.
First part, context, the backdrop, right? Where is this happening? Who is involved? If someone says, we need to discuss next steps during a really intense job interview in, say, New York City.
High stakes.
Yeah, the context is tense, professional, all about the outcome. That phrase feels heavy, maybe urgent. But if your partner says the exact same words while you're just chilling on the sofa watching TV...
Totally different vibe.
Right. The context shifts to intimate, maybe emotionally loaded. It probably means a serious talk about something personal you both know needs addressing. Same words, completely different subtext because of the context.
Absolutely. Component number 2 is tone. This is like the emotional color painted onto the words. Take a simple phrase. You finish the report. Said with a bright upward inflection. It sounds like genuine praise, maybe surprise and happiness.
Wow, you finished the report? Great.
Exactly. But say the same sentence flat, clipped, almost robotic.
You finished the report.
Yeah. Suddenly the subtext flips. It could mean disappointment, like I expected better, or even suspicion, I can't believe you actually did it, or maybe you rushed it and it's bad. Tone gives it the emotional charge.
Okay, third is body language, the nonverbals, the stuff that often gives the game away before the words even do. We talked about Sarah's angry dishwashing. What about crossed arms? That's a classic.
It is. And while it's not always defensiveness, in the middle of a discussion or disagreement, it often signals being closed off, resistant to the ideas, almost like physically shielding oneself.
Or that weird forced laugh people sometimes do.
Yeah.
Like too quick, too high-pitched.
It often masks feeling really uncomfortable or confused, or maybe just wanting a super awkward moment to end immediately. It's not real amusement.
Okay, context, tone, body language. What's the fourth?
The fourth pillar, and this one can be particularly tricky, especially for non-native speakers, is cultural cues. These are the shared understandings within a specific group. It could be the shorthand used in your office team, or family inside jokes and assumptions, or even broader national norms about what's considered polite versus confrontational in, say, American culture.
If you don't get those shared rules, the rest doesn't quite fit together.
Exactly. Without understanding the cultural map, you can completely misread the subtextual signals.
Let's zoom in on verbal cues and word choice within that framework, because certain phrases seem almost designed to hide what people really mean, especially at work. That example you gave in a business meeting. Someone presents an idea and a colleague responds, "That's interesting."
Right. In many American corporate settings, maybe a startup in Austin where everyone's supposed to be super positive, "That's interesting," is rarely just a neutral observation. It's often the polite kiss of death for an idea.
The pause before they shut it down?
Kind of, especially if the tone is flat or a bit skeptical. The subtext often translates to, "I don't agree with this at all," or "I see huge problems here." But, crucially, I want to avoid a direct clash in front of everyone, so I'll dismiss it nicely.
Is it always a dismissal, though? Or could it sometimes genuinely mean, let me think about that? How do you tell the difference?
That's a great question. Context and, again, body language are key. If the person says, "That's interesting," maintains open body language, keeps eye contact, and then asks a genuine follow-up question like, "Interesting, how would we handle the potential budget issues?"
Then it's probably real engagement.
Probably, yes. They're showing intellectual curiosity. And this is common in fast-paced corporate life if they say, "That's interesting," and then immediately pivot. Anyway, moving on to the Q3 projections. The subtext is almost certainly rejection. The lack of follow-up seals it.
The nonverbals and the flow of conversation break the tie. Okay, back to that job interview scenario. Finance job, Chicago, interview's over, recruiter says the standard line, "We'll be in touch." Seems hopeful, right? Open-ended.
The words are yes, but watch the whole package. If they say "we'll be in touch" while giving you a really quick limp handshake, just the fingertips.
Yeah, the brush-off handshake.
Right, and if they're already turning away, looking towards the door, avoiding holding your gaze, the subtext has already delivered the rejection. The words are just the polite formality. The nonverbal cues are saying, "Decision's made, it's a no, and I don't want the awkwardness of telling you directly right now."
Wow. That's something anyone job hunting needs to understand. This power of the unspoken. It's so strong it even drives stories in fiction, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Literature is full of it. Think about Hemingway's Hills like white elephants. It's a masterclass in subtext.
Right. The whole conversation's about an abortion, but they never actually say the word abortion.
Never. The tension comes entirely from what's not being said directly. The woman, Jig, keeps talking about the hills looking like white elephants, a metaphor for the unwanted pregnancy, the burden. The man keeps pushing for the operation.
And she asks him, "And if I do it, then things will be all right and you will love me." The subtext there is just heartbreaking. She clearly knows it won't magically fix their problems. She's testing him, showing her fear.
Exactly. And later she says, "I feel fine," after this incredibly tense, evasive conversation. But the whole atmosphere, the forced small talk, the drinking, the avoiding the core issue tells you she's absolutely not fine. Hemingway shows how the unsaid can be way more powerful than explicit statements.
And bringing it back to everyday life, subtext often bubbles up from really strong, raw emotions, right? Things like pride or fear or wanting something you feel awkward asking for directly.
Definitely. Let's take Uncle Joe at that Texas barbecue again. He's got this flashy new pickup truck. Huge thing. Expects.
And he leans against it, maybe pats the hood and says,
He says, with a casual wave, "Oh, this old thing, it's nothing fancy, really. Just gets me around. Good for the ranch."
classic false humility.
Yeah.
Downplaying it.
Totally. The surface text is modesty, but the subtext, it's booming. It's pure pride in his accomplishment, his ability to afford this symbol of success. And he's absolutely fishing for compliments. He wants people to say, "Wow, Joe, nice truck," without him having to overtly brag.
That example really highlights the key takeaway for anyone trying to get better at this, doesn't it?
It does. The essential first step for decoding subtext is practicing empathy. You have to move beyond just the words and try to understand the speaker's motive. Why are they choosing this indirect path?
Are they trying to protect their ego, avoid a fight, scared of rejection?
Exactly. Ask yourself those questions. What's the emotional pressure driving this indirectness? When you connect the words to the likely emotion or goal, the subtext often just clicks into place.
That really changes how you approach listening. It's not just language decoding, it's almost like psychological detective work. Okay, let's shift from the theory to how this plays out constantly in everyday American life. Starting with, surprisingly maybe, our digital world.
Ah, yes, digital subtext. It's fascinating because it often strips away body language and tone, two huge clues. This makes context and, crucially, shared history between the communicators way, way more important.
Okay, give us the example. Emily, the college student in Boston, texting her roommate.
Right. Emily texts, "Hey, are you using the kitchen tonight?" Seems simple, right? Just checking logistics.
Surface level, yeah, planning dinner.
But if Emily and her roommate have a history, say, Emily spent the last week silently, passive-aggressively cleaning up huge cooking messes left by the roommate.
Okay. I see where this is going.
Then the subtext of that simple text becomes, "Please, I'm begging you do not leave another bomb site in the kitchen tonight because I am this close to losing it." The roommate gets that implied message instantly because of their shared history.
But if Emily sent that exact same text to a brand new roommate,
The new roommate just reads it literally. "Oh, she's wondering about the kitchen." The hidden plea, the subtext based on past frustration, is completely missed. That leads straight to misunderstandings, maybe resentment down the line when messes continue. Digital communication forces us into relying heavily on shared context, but without the richness of tone or body language to confirm it.
it's a minefield. And speaking of minefields, relationships. That seems like the ultimate breeding ground for unspoken desires and the damage that ignoring subtext can do.
Without a doubt. Think about Alex and Jordan in Seattle. They had a nice weekend, maybe saw a movie. Alex says, "That movie was fun, but gosh, I wish we did more spontaneous things sometimes."
Okay, Jordan here's the first part. She liked the movie, focuses on the positive feedback.
Right. But they might miss the crucial subtext embedded in the second half. Alex isn't really critiquing the movie choice. Alex is expressing an emotional need. "I'm feeling a bit bored, maybe stuck in our routine. I crave more excitement, more novelty in our relationship."
And if Jordan just replies, "Okay, cool, we can try that new sci-fi flick next week,"
Then the core message, the subtextual cry for a change in the relationship dynamic, has been totally unheard, totally dismissed. And that is how resentment starts to build, quietly. An accumulation of unmet, unspoken needs that can eventually really damage things.
which brings us back to the MVP of relationship subtext. I'm fine.
"Oh, I'm fine." The classic. When someone you're close to, partner, parent, close friend, says they're fine right after a clear disagreement or disappointment, it almost never means they are actually fine.
What's the usual subtext then? Hurt, anger.
Usually hurt or anger or a kind of strategic withdrawal. The subtext is often a passive demand, like, "I am definitely upset, but I'm not going to tell you directly. I want you to figure it out, to see my pain without me having to spell it out. Or maybe I want you to apologize first."
It kind of puts all the work on the listener, doesn't it?
Completely. It forces the listener to become an emotional detective. It's a very common tactic, frankly, maybe a bit manipulative, but it stems directly from that cultural discomfort with direct emotional confrontation we talked about earlier.
And this plays out in families too, especially across generations where values might clash. Let's take the grandma in Ohio asking her single granddaughter, maybe she's in her early 30s.
Asking that loaded question, "So, dear, when are you going to settle down?"
On the surface, just asking about the future. But underneath,
Underneath, it's a complex mix. There's probably genuine love and concern for the granddaughter's happiness, her future security, but it's also layered with traditional expectations about marriage, maybe homeownership, starting a family, values from a different era, specific to her upbringing and community.
and the granddaughter's reply is often a masterclass in counter subtext. Something like, "Oh, Grandma, I'm really focusing on my career right now, and I just love my apartment in the city."
Perfect example. That's not just information. The subtext is a clear assertion of her values. "I'm happy and fulfilled as I am. I value my independence, my professional life, maybe my urban lifestyle over those traditional expectations. Please respect my choices and back off gently." It perfectly captures that tension between individual independence and lingering family pressures in America.
That need to manage perceptions to avoid appearing vulnerable even extends to friendships.
Yeah,
Using humor, right, as a shield.
very common. Imagine two friends grabbing coffee in San Francisco. They're complaining about their horrible, demanding boss, but they keep laughing nervously as they share horror stories.
They're not laughing because child labor is funny.
Not at all. The laughter is a coping mechanism. It signals, yes, this is stressful, but I'm handling it, I have perspective, and it's often a way to seek validation from the friend. The subtext is, this is really getting to me, agree with me, got any advice, but I don't want to sound like I'm whining or weak about a work thing.
Because showing too much vulnerability about work stress can feel risky in some professional cultures.
It can, yes. Direct emotional complaining might feel exposing, so humor becomes the safer way to vent and connect.
These cultural shifts also create subtextual gaps between generations, like a millennial talking to their boomer parent about technology.
Right. The millennial in, say, Atlanta says, "Dad, technology is just changing everything so fast these days."
The likely subtext being,
Often, it subtly implies your way of doing things, your business assumptions based on the pre-internet world, they're kind of outdated now. It's a critique wrapped in an observation about tech.
and the dad's reply, maybe something like, "Well, we worked damned hard in my day without all these fancy computers and apps, and we built things that lasted."
That's not just nostalgia. The subtext is a demand for respect. Acknowledge the value of hard work, tradition, the challenges we faced. Don't dismiss our experience just because you have new tools. It's a classic subtextual clash over values, experience, and maybe perceived generational privilege.
And we can't forget how cultural blending in diverse places like Miami adds yet another layer. The same phrase can mean different things.
Oh, absolutely. Take no problem. In standard, polite American English, if someone does you a huge favor in size just slightly before saying no problem, the subtext might actually be, "That was a major pain and you owe me one, but I'm being polite."
Right, carries a bit of passive-aggressive weight sometimes.
It can, but hear that same no problem in a heavily Spanglish-influenced conversation in Miami, perhaps between friends or neighbors. It might genuinely carry a warmer, more communal feeling, like, "Seriously, it was nothing, happy to help out, that's what we do." The subtext is shaped by the specific local culture and linguistic blend. It's never one size fits all.
These everyday examples really show how deeply layered this all is. Okay, let's shift gears now. Up the stakes, politics and the corporate world. Here, subtext isn't just about politeness. It's often a deliberate strategic weapon.
A very important shift, yes. Politics is basically the PhD level of subtext usage. Words are engineered with extreme care, not just to explain policy, but to energize specific groups of voters, while, crucially, trying not to alienate everyone else. And the main tool for this in the US is often the dog whistle.
Explain the dog whistle. How does that work?
A dog whistle is coded language. On the surface, it sounds harmless, maybe just generic political talk to the general public, but it carries a very specific, often controversial meaning to a particular target audience. The key is plausible deniability. The speaker can always say, "Oh, that's not what I meant at all," because the controversial meaning isn't explicit.
Let's use that historical example. Ronald Reagan in 1980, speaking in Neshoba County, Mississippi, a place with a very painful civil rights history.
A very charged location, yes. And there, Reagan delivered a speech praising states' rights. Now, on the surface, that's a standard conservative principle about federalism limiting Washington's power.
But the subtext, given where he was saying it,
Given the location and the timing, the subtext was widely interpreted as a direct signal to white Southern voters who were still very resistant to federal desegregation and civil rights mandates. It tapped into that lingering states' rights rhetoric used to defend segregation, energizing that specific base without Reagan having to use explicitly racist language. The intended audience heard the message loud and clear.
Fast forward quite a bit. Think about the phrase, "Make America Great Again." Hugely powerful slogan.
Hugely powerful and incredibly effective because its subtext was so elastic. For Donald Trump's core supporters, the subtext wasn't just about, say, bringing back manufacturing jobs. It was a deeply emotional promise to restore a perceived traditional American social and cultural order they felt was being lost or threatened.
Well, for his critics.
For critics, the subtext pointed backwards to eras marked by exclusion, racial inequality, and maybe nationalism. The phrase worked because people could pour their own hopes or fears into it. It validated their existing feelings.
Yeah, the chant, "Build the wall," surface level, border security.
Surface level, yes. Infrastructure, security. But subtextually. It was a powerful symbol tapping directly into nativist anxieties about immigration, demographic change, and cultural identity. The wall became a concrete metaphor for exclusion and protection for those who felt threatened by those changes.
Looking at the other side, Hillary Clinton's basket of deplorables comment in 2016, that backfired massively, didn't it?
It did, largely because of the perceived subtext. The literal statement was a criticism of certain views held by some of her opponent's supporters.
But how was it read?
It was widely read and amplified by her opponents as evidence of profound elitism. The subtextual message received by many working-class voters, particularly in rural areas, was, here's a wealthy coastal politician looking down on us.
That perception of arrogance, the subtext, became more damaging than the words themselves.
Absolutely. Trump's campaign brilliantly used it to position him somewhat ironically, given his background as the champion of the forgotten common person, fighting against the condescending elites. Elections can really swing on who wins the subtext battle.
Which means we as listeners have to be really aware of currently loaded terms that act like modern dog whistles. Words like woke or the acronym CRT.
Yes, these terms are rarely used neutrally anymore. Woke, depending heavily on who's using it and where, carries a powerful subtext. To some, it means vital awareness of systemic racism and injustice.
But when used as a political attack,
then the subtext usually signals things like liberal extremism, cancel culture, political correctness gone mad, or an attack on traditional American values. It becomes a shorthand way to tap into deeper cultural anxieties about social change and power shifts without needing to debate specific policies.
And CRT, critical race theory, often brought up in school board meetings, but rarely about the actual academic theory itself.
Almost never. In those contexts, the subtext is usually about parental rights, fear of losing control over children's education, or anxiety that teaching certain aspects of American history will induce guilt or racial division. The fight isn't really about the academic framework. It's about the subtextual fears the letters CRT have come to represent for that audience. It's frankly exhausting, but you have to constantly scan for the hidden agendas in political speech. And if politics is the masterclass, the American corporate world is like a daily subtext minefield. Here, the need for results bumps right up against that ingrained need for diplomatic, positive language.
Yeah, this is where careers can get made or broken silently, often without one clear warning. Let's take that feedback sandwich example.
Yeah.
Lisa, the manager in Silicon Valley, a place where positivity is almost mandatory.
Right. Lisa tells her employee, you've got amazing potential, really sharp thinking, and your presentation slides look fantastic. Just need you to keep pushing hard on this one specific project area.
Sounds encouraging, right? Potential, fantastic slides.
That's the bread of the sandwich, the praise. But the meat, the real message, is in that keep pushing hard part, especially the emphasis. The subtext the employee should hear is, your actual performance in this key area is not meeting expectations yet. You need to improve significantly and fast on your own initiative, or you'll face consequences passed over for promotion, maybe sidelined, eventually maybe let go. The relentless optimism of the culture requires this indirectness.
And in the boardroom, big company in New York, a senior exec pitches an idea the CEO hates. The CEO says.
The CEO might listen politely and then say calmly, okay, interesting points. Let's table this discussion for now.
Literal meaning, we'll talk about it later.
Literal meaning, yes. But watch the cues. If the CEO immediately shifts the agenda, cuts off any chance for the exec to respond further, the subtext is crystal clear. I hate this idea, it's dead. Drop it now and don't bring it up again.
Someone who misses that subtext wastes political capital trying to revive a DOA proposal. And mergers, the classic corporate euphemism fountain. Executives now were incredibly excited about the synergies this merger will unlock.
Synergies, the go-to word. The surface is all positive, efficient, forward-looking. But the subtext, based on decades of experience.
Layoffs are coming.
Almost certainly. The subtext is significant job cuts and restructuring are inevitable, but we need to keep everyone calm, maintain morale, and reassure shareholders right now. Employees who hear the subtext start polishing their resumes before the official synergy announcement translates into pink slips.
Cultural background adds another layer of complexity in diverse U.S. workplaces, too. That high context versus low context communication style.
Big difference. Imagine a team in, say, Seattle. You have American managers who generally prefer direct, low context feedback, and you have colleagues from high context Asian cultures who might express disagreement much more subtly.
How might that play out?
The high context colleague might not say, "I disagree." They might say something like, "That approach has some complexities we need to consider carefully." The American manager, used to directness, might hear that as just a minor point to note.
But the subtext for the colleague was,
The subtext was likely, "This plan is seriously flawed and I have major reservations." If the manager misses that culturally specific subtext, they might push ahead with the plan their colleague has already mentally flagged as problematic.
which brings us to the famous British understatement in a U.S. office. The British colleague reviews a flashy American marketing plan and says politely, that's quite an interesting approach.
If the American takes that at face value, low context, they might think, "Oh, he thinks it's novel." But the typical subtext in that kind of British polite phrasing often means, "That is a truly dreadful idea and I think it's doomed to fail." Missing that specific cultural code can lead to disaster.
Gender dynamics also play a huge role in workplace subtext, often used to navigate or even perpetuate bias. The female engineer in Detroit example.
Right. Highly competitive, maybe male-dominated auto industry. She presents a clever technical solution. Her boss responds, "Good initial thought. Let's refine that a bit before we move forward."
Sounds collaborative. Let's refine.
The words sound collaborative, but depending on the tone, the history, the context, the subtext can be deeply patronizing. It could signal, "Your idea isn't quite good enough on its own. It needs my male input or validation to be taken seriously." It subtly reinforces stereotypes about competence, forcing her to battle not just for the idea, but for the right to be perceived as fully capable from the start.
It makes you realize you need to watch the whole ecosystem at work. Who gets interrupted, who holds eye contact, who does the real talking in hushed tones after the meeting.
Exactly. Those details reveal the true power dynamics, the alliances, the hidden anxieties that the official meeting minutes will never capture.
And quickly, digital subtext in remote work. That single word reply.
Yes. You ask your manager via Slack for a significant change, maybe shifting deadlines. They reply simply, "Sure." That ellipsis, that tiny pause, implied by the 3 dots after an affirmative word, it almost always screams reluctance.
Even though they said yes.
Even though they said yes, the subtext is, "Okay, fine, I've agreed, but I'm not thrilled about this and I don't really want to discuss it further." It's a grudging agreement.
Professional survival really does demand constant vigilance for the unspoken. Okay, let's pivot one last time. The world of media, celebrities, PR. This entire industry feels like it's built on managing subtext.
It absolutely is. Public relations is the art of controlling the narrative, often through subtext. Celebrity interviews, press conferences, they're rarely spontaneous chats. They're carefully managed performances designed to project a specific image and deflect anything damaging.
Take Taylor Swift. She inevitably gets asked about some supposed feud or drama. Her typical response.
Often something like, "I just try to focus on my music and connecting with my fans. That's what's really important to me."
Surface meaning. I'm dedicated to my art. Subtext.
Multi-layered subtext. 1, I'm not taking the bait. I refuse to fuel this drama the media loves. 2, I'm portraying myself as mature, professional, above petty conflicts. It effectively redirects the conversation back to her work and manages her image as a serious artist, not just a tabloid figure.
Tom Cruise talking about his own stunts.
Classic deflection through dedication. By focusing intensely on the physical risks, the grueling training, his commitment to realism for the fans, it highlights his work ethic and professionalism.
And the subtext is?
The subtext is, "Look at how dedicated I am to my craft. Focus on this incredible effort, not on any potentially uncomfortable personal questions or controversies that might be lurking, it successfully shifts the media focus.
And on the Oscars red carpet, the actress up for a big award says,
"Oh, winning would be wonderful, but honestly, this nomination is all thanks to the incredible team, the director, the writers, the crew."
Strategic humility.
Exactly. The subtext is, "I'm downplaying my personal ambition right now because appearing too eager or self-absorbed during awards season can backfire. I need to project gratitude and teamwork, even if I desperately want that statue." It manages perception.
And research backs this up, right? Gender often shapes the kinds of questions asked, which reinforces certain subtexts.
Yes, studies show female celebrities often face far more questions about their relationships, family plans, or balancing work and life compared to male counterparts asked mainly about their craft or next project. Even if the questions seem innocent, the pattern of questioning carries a subtext that subtly reinforces traditional gender roles, suggesting women are still primarily defined by personal life, while men are defined by professional achievement.
And finally, news delivery itself. Even with a neutral script, the way it's delivered matters hugely.
Immensely. An anchor's tone, their pacing, even a subtle facial expression can inject bias. A common technique is using neutral-sounding attributions to introduce opinion.
Like saying, some critics argue this policy is disastrous.
Precisely. Or, sources say the company is facing turmoil. The phrases "some critics argue" or "sources say" allow the anchor to introduce a potentially biased or negative viewpoint into the story without directly owning it.
So they maintain deniability, but the tone or emphasis they use when saying disastrous or turmoil can heavily influence how the audience receives that information.
Exactly. The slight sneer, the raised eyebrow, the overly serious tone applied only to one side's claims. These are subtextual cues that shape perception, guiding the listener towards a particular interpretation, even if the words themselves appear balanced.
It really underscores that just listening isn't enough. You have to interpret the entire performance.
Listening is just the entry ticket. Understanding the, 75–80% that's unspoken, that's the real skill.
Okay. This has been incredibly revealing. Mastering subtext clearly gives you a much sharper lens on the world. So let's wrap this deep dive by consolidating the key takeaways. The 5 pillars you, our listener, need to work on to really master subtext detection in American English.
Pillar 1, actively observe nonverbal cues. Don't just listen, watch. Pay attention to tone shifts, fleeting facial expressions, posture changes, that tiny, almost missed eye roll. It might contradict the positive words completely. If someone physically closes off, arms crossed, they turn slightly away, their mind might be closing off too, no matter how polite they sound.
Pillar 2, always consider the context. Never analyze words in a vacuum. What's the situation? Who are the people involved? What's the history? Remember, the American cultural values politeness, individualism that often necessitate indirectness. Context is the decoder ring.
Pillar 3, hunt for inconsistencies. Look for the clash. When the words say one thing, but the tone, body language, or actions say another. Trust the nonverbals more often than not. Your friend says, "I'm thrilled for you about your success," but their voice is flat and they can't meet your eye. The subtext is likely envy or disappointment, despite the socially correct words.
Pillar 4, practice deep empathy. This is the internal work, maybe the hardest. Constantly ask yourself, why might they be choosing indirectness right now? What are they afraid of? What are they trying to protect? What's their underlying goal? Empathy means temporarily setting aside your own need for clarity to understand their potential motive for being subtle.
And Pillar 5, pay close attention to word choice, especially hedges. Listen for irony or sarcasm, of course, but also tune into those softening words. Sort of, kind of, maybe, a little bit, possibly. People use these hedges when they're uncertain, have reservations, or don't want to commit fully. I guess I'm sort of okay with that plan. Doesn't mean they love the plan. The subtext is significant doubt.
These aren't skills you just passively absorb. You have to practice them deliberately. Maybe try journaling. After a conversation, don't just note what was said. Jot down what you inferred from the nonverbals, the tone, the context. How did the subtext seem to shape things?
Or try this. Watch interviews or debates online. Pause frequently. Maybe even turn the sound off for a moment. Try to guess the underlying emotion or intention just from the visuals before you hear the words. Unveiling the unspoken is incredibly empowering. It helps you navigate tricky situations, sure, but it also lets you connect more deeply, more authentically with people.
Absolutely. From Sarah's kitchen in Chicago saying, "I'm fine," to the coded language bouncing around Washington, D.C., hidden meanings are everywhere in American life. If you practice these skills, you really do shift from just hearing words to truly understanding communication. You start seeing things as they are, not just how people present them.
And that brings us to our final thought, something for you to reflect on from everything we've explored today. Remember this: the most meaningful, the most real conversation often isn't happening in the words themselves. It's happening in the silences between them, in the pauses, in what's left unsaid. Challenge yourself to listen for the unspoken. That's where you'll often find the truth.
That's a powerful note to end on. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the layers beneath the surface of communication. Hopefully you feel better equipped to navigate those layers now. If you found these insights useful, must mention like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.